Hi, this is Matt Shepard. Coming up on this edition of Shep Shower and Shave, a renewed faith in humanity. A weird football weekend for us here in Metro Detroit and appreciating greatness, even though it's not your team. We're brought to you by Northwestern Tech. Listen, Northwestern Tech does one thing and they do it really well. They teach HVAC. They've perfected a hands-on program for the last 38 years. They've got flexible scheduling. It allows you to keep working your job while training for an actual career. And in 10 and a half months, you get trained, certified, and into the field that you love. Call them today, 248-358-4006. I've got kids, and I know what it's like to try and fundraise for athletics, travel teams, school teams. It's a pain in the ass. It's tough for you. You end up buying most of it, don't you? I mean, your kids come home, I got to get rid of these raffle tickets. Don't you end up paying for most of it? I used to. But with Hungry Howie's, they've got a great program called Dough Raiser. It's simple. Your sports team, your school group, you can sell Hungry Howie's pizza certificates to raise lots of money for your organization. I mean, think about it. I'm going to be eating pizza tonight before I go to a football game. Many people will be. Families eat pizza at least once a week, so it's easy to sell. All you have to do is go to doughraiser.com. That's D-O-U-G-H, razor.com. We're also brought to you by Nate Knopf Designs. You can find his work on Instagram and on Facebook. He's the one who designed the Shep Shower and Shave logo. First things first, a renewed faith in humanity. We've all somehow, some way, been touched by the tragedies that have taken place in Texas and in Florida, the hurricanes, Harvey and Irma. It's difficult. If you know people, if you have family, if you have friends, family, you all feel for those who are homeless, lost loved ones, lost a member of the family, lost their homes. It's going to be a massive rebuild. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be very difficult. Proud of the federal government, the way they've acted so quickly, so swiftly, so confidently. But there are other tragedies, really, that take place on a daily basis. You and I just don't always feel them, do we? I did this past summer. Lost a good friend of mine. He was only 50, leaves behind 4 boys and a wife, and it's been a very difficult adjustment for them. Friends within that group, and this goes to show you that sometimes when we deal in social media, and you deal in sports, and you have the emotions that you have, and I completely understand and support those of you who are out there at times getting frustrated with the Tigers, at times getting angry with the Lions, at times getting fed up with the Red Wings, at times not even caring about the Pistons. I get it, all right? But when you look around and you see the friends you have and the family you have, sometimes you need a reminder of just how fortunate you truly are. And I got that reminder last night where there was a benefit for my friend and the number of people who came out to support his family. The school that is allowing their children to go there without a financial burden on the widow. Some wonderful soul stepped forward, paid for my friend's oldest son to continue his collegiate life at Dayton. Because if not, your world as a child, and he's 19, and then there's a 17-year-old, and then there's twin 9th graders, your world is already turned upside down. You already may lose your house. You've already lost your father. Who knows where you go from there without the support and strength of your mom, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, and your late father's friends. Who knows where you go? But somebody stepped forward and said, I've got the tuition for Dayton. I mean, it chokes me up just thinking about it. And there was a golf outing yesterday at Oakland Hills that was wonderfully attended, where the money went to the widow, And then there was an auction and a party and a dinner party following that my wife and I were fortunate to attend, and saw a lot of friends and talked to a lot of people who are there to support the family. And for people to step forward and give the amount of time, thought, caring, and finances really renewed my faith in humanity. I love what I do. I think you love following sports, reading about it. To me, it's gotten way too political. I'm not even going there because I think it's ridiculous what goes on at certain companies. But at some point, it'd be nice to reel some things in and sit back and realize and appreciate what you have in life. And maybe people do. We just don't see it enough. Maybe we should be reporting on it more. Maybe it's stories like this that need to have a little bit more attention. And I'm not going to go deep into it. I just wanted you to know that there are still plenty of good people out there, because when you're on social media, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, whatever it may be, there are a lot of people loving to hide behind words, loving to be curmudgeons, loving to be negative people to try and bring you down. Don't let it bring you down. Try to stay positive. And maybe you can turn them around. Maybe you can reverse the rules a little bit and give them some positivity where it might change their belief. So very proud of the people who were out there supporting my late friend Bill Nelson. And just a wonderful way to start a weekend, appreciating the support and the love that so many people had last night and will continue to have. And I'm proud to say that last night I heard there is it's going to be an annual thing. And I think that's wonderful. All right, it's a weird weekend for football, isn't it? I call Eastern Michigan football, they have a bye. 3 weeks into the season, they have a bye. Michigan State, third week of the season, they have a bye. I don't think either one of those programs would like to be off this weekend. Eastern Michigan coming off a nice win of Rutgers. Michigan State coming off a much more convincing win of Western Michigan than I think a lot of people thought originally going in. We saw what Western Michigan was able to do against USC, a highly respected team and program right now. And going into Spartan Stadium, many of us, including yours truly, said Michigan State should be a little concerned. Michigan State didn't look fantastic against Bowling Green, and Bowling Green's not even close to the talent that Western Michigan has. So I thought there was going to be room for concern for MSU. Absolutely. And if you take into account the belief that you make your largest gains from week 1 to week 2, the obvious assumption is Western Michigan's going to be even better and more difficult to handle because of what they did against USC. They improve upon that, and they're coming back home. There's going to be a large contingent of Bronco fans. There is the belief that they can beat them. We know what happened a year ago between these two programs, or how these two team programs are separate. Western went undefeated before they lost to Wisconsin in a big bowl game. Michigan State was majorly disappointed. All those things. We take all that into account, assuming that Western's going to be better than week 1, doing the same thing about Michigan State, feeling the same way there, but knowing that Western was a lot closer to victory over a better program and team than Michigan State was, blowing out what should have been a runaway against a team that really isn't all that good. Bowling Green's not expected to challenge for the MAC East title, let alone the Mid-American Conference title. And I don't think I'm wrong there. I could be, but I don't think I am wrong there. So I thought Michigan State and their win over Western Michigan, very impressive. Kudos to them. I wouldn't have thought they would want this week off. Now they get a full 2 weeks to prepare for Notre Dame, so maybe therein lies the positive. But I would guess most coaches, when you're just starting up, okay, you get through training camp, You get that first one out of the way. It's not all that great. You see plenty of room for improvement. You get that improvement into week 2 and against a much better team, and then you got to exhale, and you got to sit back, and you got to rearrange a schedule that your kids are usually used to. Practice, 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 film, walkthrough, game. You see what I'm saying? So they wanted, I would guess they would have wanted to play. No matter what Mark D'Antonio says, they would have wanted to play this week rather than rest. And I think Eastern Michigan, the same thing. Coaches won't dwell on it because all it does is give you a built-in excuse. So you just want to say, all right, we'll heal up a little bit if any of our guys are nicked or bruised, scratched, cut, or broken, and then we'll be ready and game plan for 2 weeks for our next opponent. Fine. For Eastern, it's Ohio. For Michigan State, it's Notre Dame. So Michigan is the only, I don't want to dispute, Central and Western, but I mean, big Saturday, okay? Big Saturday, Michigan against Air Force. And Michigan has looked, I think, pretty good. They look better against Florida, probably, than they did against Cincinnati, which might surprise people. A little bit of a letdown, you would have assumed, right? This is a difficult matchup at noon on Saturday. And it's difficult because, and it has nothing to do with, these two teams haven't played in a long time. These coaches are at their alma mater. Troy Calhoun for Air Force, Jim Harbaugh for the University of Michigan. And, there's not that many head coaches. I think there's 14 in the country who lead their alma mater. John Bonamego, Central Michigan does. Paul Christ, Wisconsin. Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State, right? Tim Lester, Western Michigan. Cliff Kingsbury, Texas Tech. Guys like that. There's more, but you get my point. Has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the way Air Force runs their offense. And I'm not going to compare the University of Michigan to VMI, right? Because that was an ass kicking. That was 62-0 Falcons. What they were able to do was pretty impressive. I don't care who you're playing. When you can run the way they did and churn up the yards the way they did, that's impressive. I mean, this is a team that should scare most because it is very difficult to prepare for. I'm not calling for an upset here. That's not going to happen. I just feel like these are the games that concern coaches the most because it can be very hard to prepare for them. The way they run, it's unique. This is a team that rushed for 473 yards last week, 663 yards. Now, here's the biggest difference. Michigan is obviously a much more athletic than VMI, much deeper than VMI, but also much bigger than Air Force. Michigan's offensive line averages 6'4", 310 pounds. 6'4", 310. You put that against Air Force's average defensive line, 6'2", 272, you know what happens. Michigan's defensive line averages 6'4", 285. Air Force's offensive line isn't that big. They average 6'2", 282. Now, that doesn't always tell the story. You know it and I know that. Because you can be big, fat, and wallow your way around a football field. You've seen Michigan's bodies. That's not how they are. You know Air Force's bodies aren't like that. You're not in a military school if you're a tub of goo. You can't do it. Michigan's defensive line and offensive line bodies are not like that. They are quick. They are fast. They move their feet well. That said, the way Air Force runs its offense, very difficult to duplicate in practice. That's why it was tough to prepare. It's tough to prepare for guys like Michael Vick back when he played at Vatech. How do you handle that? How do you find or give your defense that type of look? Look, you can call any play you want. All right, this is what they usually run. You got to have the bodies, the people, to run those plays against your defense. Not that Wilton Speight would be doing this, but Brandon Peters running this offense doesn't work in this week to prepare for Michigan's defense. Now, maybe they got John O'Korn. He's athletic. Maybe it's a little different. And some of the running backs. But don't sleep on this game. I think Michigan's going to be a hell of a lot better than they were against Cincinnati. A hell of a lot better. Because I didn't think offensively they were clicking all that well. And I don't think you do either. Despite Wilton Spate's 2 touchdowns, there is still plenty of room for improvement there. But I do believe this is a team that's going to start coming together a little bit. And if it doesn't, they're in for a rude awakening when they go to West Lafayette. Because Purdue's a lot better, man. Not that they're going to beat Michigan. Michigan's much better than Purdue still. But those are the games that should scare you. When you come off this team, difficult to prepare for, the way they run their offense, the reads that you're supposed to have defensively, the keys that you must rely on, this is where discipline comes into play for Michigan. You must stay true to your keys when you run against or when you defend against Air Force. And then you're going to get Purdue. You're going to go there. They're going to be jacked up. They're better than they were a year ago. They've got all these flashy new uniforms and all this other crap. They're going to be ready for you. Don't think it's going to matter. I'm just telling you right now, there is no mental break here for Michigan. Then you got the Lions on Monday night. You get the Lions on Monday night against the Giants. And that defense, now, New York hasn't, offensively, they look god-awful against Dallas, didn't they? I don't know if it's they looking god-awful against Dallas or Dallas's defense just looking that good against the Giants. Still, New York without Odell Beckham Jr., but still, they've got enough talent to do better than 3 points against the Cowboys. And it's interesting how Lions first quarter, everybody complaining what a terrible game. Giants against Cowboys, Sunday Night Football, everyone complaining, boring game. Thursday Night Football last night, Houston and Cincinnati, most people complaining, boring game. And then I'll tell you, hey, listen, how do you win championships? You'll start screaming defense. But you don't want to see the defense unless it's your team. Which I get it. I mean, that's the way sports is these days. People don't fall in love with 2-0 baseball games. They love them when they're 8-6. People don't want to see a 1-0 shutout in hockey. They'd much rather see the final score 6-5. And in football, the same thing. They don't want to see a 6-3 game. And to a certain extent, I can understand it because I don't necessarily either. Because I don't want to see field goals. But I can appreciate a 13-7 game if the defense is rock solid. If you're stumbling and bubbling on special teams, like Detroit did the opening weekend against Arizona, then I think it's bad football. But if you're talking about hard to move the ball downfield because of great coverage, hard to move the football downfield because the guys up front are nasty, I appreciate that. J.J. Watt was an absolute wrecking ball last night against Cincinnati. I'm sure people in Cincinnati are beating up Andy Dalton and A.J. Green and Giovanni Bernard and all these other Cincinnati Bengals offensive players. Tyler Eifert. What did we use a first-round pick on this guy for? Why did we give this guy this much money? They haven't scored a touchdown in the first 2 games. And now they got to go to New England. So I get it. But Detroit's going to go up against a defense that is tough, challenged, proven on Monday night. Now, I don't think you can necessarily just compare, Dallas's offense is better than the Lions' offense. Dallas only had 19 points. Detroit's not going to be able to score. It's going to be hard to move the football. I want you to be prepared for that. I want you to be ready to watch a game where your offense is going to have some 3-and-outs. It's going to be turned away at times. It's going to be tough to move the pile. It's going to be tough to throw the football. It's going to be a challenge to protect the quarterback. Be ready for that. Before you turn on your computer or your phone, before you log on to Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, before you start going off, understand going in, this is going to be a hell of a challenge for your football team. That's what needs to take place. Too many of us, including yours truly, forget that. We forget the fact that not just that the other team's there to win too, but that the other team has got some sense of urgency as well. That it's going to be a scary situation. It's going to be a tight game. It may come down to another fourth quarter matchup. It may require another fourth quarter comeback, and you may not like that because you want to be free and easy. You want to go to bed early Monday. We've got this wrapped up. I'm going to bed. I'll read more about it tomorrow. I'll talk more about it tomorrow. It's probably not going to happen. Shep, Shower, and Shave brought to you by Northwestern Tech, by Nate Knopf Designs, and by Hungry Howie's. All right, the things that you should be able to appreciate, the greatness, even if it's not your team. I don't like the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't like the Cleveland Indians. I respect them, especially because of their ability, but I don't necessarily like them. It's not like I'm sitting there cheering for the Cleveland Indians to win a World Series or win the division again. I want the Tigers to do it, but they're not going to. They're 34 games under 500. Cleveland is just the opposite, right? They're 35 games over 500. They're 91 and 56. They've won a Major League Baseball record 22 straight games after beating Kansas City last night. They're down to the Royals. They get a run in the 9th, and they get a run in the 10th. Amazing story. Really is. And I think it's a Major League record 22 straight because the 1916 New York Giants went unbeaten for 26 games. They won 12, had a tie, won another 16, or 14 rather. And by the way, that was part of a 31-game homestand at the Polo Grounds. Detroit's got an 11-game homestand to finish up the year. This was a 31-game homestand by the New York Giants. What Cleveland did last night, in my mind, is the Major League Baseball record for winning streaks. Their magic number is down to, I think, 3. They've rarely trailed, okay? When they finished up against Detroit, they had trailed in only 4 of the 189 innings. Their starters were 19-0. They had a run differential of 104 runs during the streak. They had outscored their opposition 67-13. They had 6 series sweeps. Think about this. After they swept Detroit, they had 6 series sweeps in 3 weeks. In a 3-week span, they had 6 series sweeps. The Cubs, the defending champions, in 5.5 months, had 7. That's it. I said this over a month ago during a Tigers broadcast for Fox Sports Detroit when we had an inside corner segment of debating who the best team in baseball was or who the best team in the American League was. Now, at the time, many people thought it was the Los Angeles Dodgers. Since that time, recently, they went on an 11-game skid and lost 15 of 16. The Cleveland Indians are the most balanced team in baseball. They're very good defensively. They made the second fewest errors in all of baseball. Now, that may not be what you judge a defense on, fielding percentage, because it can be very misleading. But there's a lot of things in sports that can be misleading regarding an official score and so on and so forth. But anyway, bottom line is only Miami's made fewer errors. So they don't make many errors. They don't beat themselves very much. They're aggressive on the base paths. I love that about them. They can hit the long ball. During that 21-game winning streak, they had 39 home runs and allowed 41 home runs, and only allowed 35 runs. They had more homers than their opposition totaled. That's incredible. Just unbelievable. So they've got power. Edwin Encarnacion, Jay Bruce, to a certain extent, Jose Ramirez, all right, Carlos Santana. Francisco Lindor's got 30 bombs at shortstop. That's a new franchise record. So, great defense, outstanding aggressiveness on the base paths. They've got power more than anything. And they don't rely on the power, by the way. They can beat you in so many different ways. They can slap the ball around the yard. They can take the extra bag. They can hit and run. They can sacrifice you over. The other thing they have, and the most important thing they have, is they have the deepest starting rotation in the bigs. Corey Kluber and Carlos Carrasco are both Cy Young contenders in the American League. You could throw in Trevor Bauer if you wanted. He's got 16 wins, but he doesn't have the ERA and the whip. And in addition to that, you get a guy like Mike Clevenger, who, as a 4-starter, has 10 wins. Pretty damn good. There's only 3 teams in baseball who has a starting 4-man rotation that boasts double-digit wins. Washington, St. Louis, and Cleveland. They're doing this without Michael Brantley. They're doing this without the stud kid Springer in center field, and they're doing it without Andrew Miller out of the bullpen. What happens when Andrew Miller comes back? You think that team's scared of Boston or New York? Hell no. Houston, maybe to a certain extent. I'm not buying that they or Houston need to have home field advantage because both are better on the road this year than they are at home. I don't want them necessarily to win, but I sure as hell do appreciate it because I wish my team looked like this. They're fun to watch, they're complete, and they're damn good. And in addition to all that, they're entertaining. How people in Cleveland can't be going to these games. Look, it's easy to jump on the damn bandwagon when your team's won 21 in a row and you're about to set the American League record, or Major League record, I should say. Easy to jump on before when you were about to set the American League record in the final game against Detroit. Easy to jump on then. Why do you rank 24th in baseball when your team's among the best in baseball in terms of attendance? Don't get it. Shame on them. You're going to show up for the Cleveland Browns, but you're not showing up for the Cleveland Indians, especially this time of the year? Ridiculous. But they're really good, man, and I love watching them play. Now, there was some controversy in the very last game they played against Detroit, and that's when Wark Saupold crossed up John Hicks and hit Quinn Walcott, the home plate umpire. Home plate umpire got up and said, "Do you think they did that on purpose?" I remind people, bases juiced. Anybody who thinks that was intentional has no clue in athletics. I know it didn't look good. I know many people immediately jump to conclusion and say, see, they just ejected James McCann and their manager, so here's what they're going to do. They're going to let that go. He called for a slider. He's expecting it down and away. He gets a fastball, and Hicks couldn't adjust. And he's just fresh off the bench, by the way. That wasn't intentional. There are certain things you can tell are intentional. When Alex Wilson hits a batter, for example, with the New York Yankees, it was intentional. When there were certain things going on during that brawl fight, or that brawl game, brawl fight, same damn thing, brawl game, Detroit and New York, you knew some of that stuff was intentional, right? There's no way that was intentional to hit an umpire. Think how stupid you'd have to be to do that. It's ridiculous. And not worth discussing, even though we did briefly on the postgame show on Tigers Live. Shep Shower and Shave is brought to you by Hungry Howie's, the Michigan-based pizza company known as the original flavored crust pizza. They've got the best fundraiser around called Dough Raiser. Very simple for you to use. All you have to do is go to doughraiser.com to learn more and sign up today. Don't sell raffle tickets. Don't do a car wash. Have your next fundraiser come with flavored crust with Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser. We're brought to you by Northwestern Tech. To learn more, go to northwesterntech.edu. Some big HVAC companies will tell you Northwestern Tech is the place to go to get your HVAC education. It's all they do, and they do it better than anybody else. And they've been doing it for 38 years. Get trained, certified, and into the field in 10 and a half months. That's at Northwestern Tech, 248-358-4006. And we're brought to you by Nate Knopf Designs. See his work on Instagram or on Facebook. He designed the Shep Shower and Shave logo. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back next week for another podcast edition of Shep Shower and Shave. Please support our sponsors. They keep us rolling here on this podcast, and I hope you can join me on Monday night as Lions Live with Rob Rubik and Lomas Brown hits the airwaves again on Fox Sports Detroit. We'll be breaking down Lions and Giants, and then I'll be talking about it on Tuesday of next week. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for listening to another podcast edition of Shep Shower and Shave.